Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Freaks with a Z, the podcast all about movies. Each episode is about a single movie, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, I need to invite you, the listener, to join us and recommend movies in the fan vote. Every, what is it, 4 episodes, there's the fan vote, and then we talk about the fan vote winner after Cal's episode. So that's what we're doing today. Today we're on the fan vote movie. So if you want to be just like a certain someone, you can recommend us a movie at ff.filmfreakswithaz@gmail.com or by commenting on the latest episode of Film Freaks on YouTube or by joining the Ferret Nation Discord and talking in the movie stuff section. We'll take recommendations everywhere. If you're on the podcast, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you could also recommend a movie while you're talking to us. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves before we talk about the movie. I am the Yemmy, the ferret, and I'm here with
The weird waffles.
And Song Woo Kellis.
and of course we're joined by the illustrious, the brave, the beautiful, the Welshman, Player2.
Hello.
Hey!
That's me! I'm the good, the bad, the weird. I'm all of them.
He's all of them, folks.
The complete package.
I am all three personalities. How are you, gents? How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Now that you're
Great.
here.
Yeah,
Oh, wow,
now that I hear
you.
your beautiful voice.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
very nice
guys.
to have you.
How are you, P2?
I'm very excited about this. I think I recommended this movie probably about 6 to 8 months ago.
More than that.
It's been out for a while.
This was the
yeah.
second recommendation we ever got.
Wow. So it was nice to finally, get its time in the limelight for sure.
That's right. It's finally here.
So it must have been like 2 years ago then, right?
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Wow.
Dang.
Let's
Dang,
talk about the
still
elephant in
gotcha.
the room. Tay Mation is not here today. Tay, he's probably sleeping, to be honest. But we had to record a little bit earlier than usual for our good friend P2, who lives in the UK.
The time zones suck, man. Time zones suck.
What do you think Tay's dreaming about right now?
Probably how good this movie is. I understand.
He's probably dreaming about
Dreaming
the weird.
movie. The weird, yeah. At least it's not the bad.
Well, hey, speaking of the movie, P2, go ahead and introduce the movie for us.
Okay, so the movie that I recommended all those years ago is The Good, the Bad, the Weird. There's no "and" in that title whatsoever. Movie that first came out in 2008, and I was introduced to it around 2010. And it's been a movie that's kind of like stuck in my head for quite a considerable amount of time. It's something that I'm always quick to recommend to people. It's one of those kind of on the fringe. It sounds like you should know it, but a lot of people don't. And having the chance to sort of experience that and to let other people sort of see just how creative and imaginative and just chaotic this film is always an exciting procedure. So in the movie, just to give you a bit of an idea about it, there is one map and everybody wants this map. So all of these main characters that we obviously have the good. There is a character who is the bounty hunter. We have the bad, who is the leader of a criminal gang. And then we have the weird. And his character, we don't really know too much a little bit about, but he's kind of the, chaotic character out of the three. The other two kind of ooze a little bit of class and a little bit of sophistication and almost kind of like a moral code to go by, which is a little bit bizarre. But ultimately, what the whole movie is about is that the weird stumbles upon this secret treasure map. And everybody, and I mean everybody, wants to get their hands on it. From the other two main characters to other bandits to even the Japanese army, everyone is trying to get this map to get what it is trying to find. A lot of craziness happens, a lot of chaos happens, and then a lot of dark and twisted things also take place as well. I think
A
that's
lot of shooting, too.
Yes, definitely a lot of shooting and a lot of horses.
So much
too.
shooting. Yes.
So yeah.
This has this movie has been like on my radar for probably since it came out, or like around 2010, and I've always wanted to watch it. So I'm glad definitely have an excuse to watch it, and yeah, it did not disappoint.
Excellent.
P2, I really like the introduction you gave for the movie. It is a very magical kind of experience. It's goofy at times, and it's just got a shit ton of action.
Yeah. It's like, you want action? Well, here's more
You got
action.
it.
Even from like the opening scenes, like that train heist was just such a over the top ridiculous scene. Like you're in for a wild ride if that's how the movie is starting.
Y'all know I'm a sucker for trains and train sequences, and this one delivered.
Definitely
what I
Western
kind of liked
style
about it,
train.
yeah, what I liked about it is that as soon as the movie starts, it kind of lets you know exactly what's happening. There's kind of no mysterious. There's no kind of trying to figure out, the whole plot line. It opens up with a guy going, "You have to get this map," and it kind of set the scene from there. And what I quite liked in terms of it as a viewer of it is not only is the cinematography just incredible, like the scenes that are shot so perfectly. You got a nice mix between bizarre different kind of camera angles, like in the opening credits we got it from the eagle's point of view, which was quite an interesting way to do things. But more so, I just like the fact that we meet the bad guy first, which kind of tells you that the film is going to be on its head immediately, because usually that's not how most films would kind of begin. But yeah, like you said, so much action that they haven't got time to build plot. It's a case of, right, this is happening, let's get going.
Hold on to your horses.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of scenes will go like action scene, and then they don't really know what to do after that, so they kind of like stumble into another action scene. I guess the main one would be like that chase sequence towards the end where the weird is just being chased on that motorcycle. It seems to take forever, and then
Yeah.
he just gets to like this random like
Shadow,
I don't know,
whatever.
whorehouse or whatever you want to call it, right? And it's like, okay, how do we get here? I don't know, but we're here now.
That was such a weird
that's
scene.
the way that I think you can't look into it and try and. It's not. I don't think it's one of those movies that you have to look at and be like, is this plot really going to be the best thing about it? I think back in the especially mid 2000s, it was a beautiful time for what films would be. Of sometimes they were just chaotic and mad and fun and stupid, if you see what I mean. There was this kind of huge focus on narrative. It was chaos was happening, and let's just go with it and let's enjoy it for what it is. So there's a lot of different things in there. You've got the high end action, you've got the high end kind of acting is surprisingly good, because when you usually have these, and it almost feels like a little bit of a B movie to begin with, of where we've got the stupid taglines, we've almost got the cliched type roles and characters and sayings and things, but the acting is actually really, really good. And it was only when watching this film again, I actually looking at the faces of these characters and going, where do I know these people from? And it was only when the bad is doing one of his many stare directly at the cameras scenes and realizing, hold on, he's in Squid Game, right? Where he just stares directly at the screen. Again, that must be like his go-to piece. And then the man who plays the weird is the father in Parasite, which I don't know if you've seen that or even been recommended that. But again, it's just weird to think that these roles were the first kind of like main kickstart to their careers in that way.
Yeah, I haven't seen Parasite yet, but I've seen enough of like the trailers. Like, yeah, that does he is that guy, isn't he?
He is that guy.
You gotta watch Parasite.
Parasite is very, very good.
It's on my list.
Cool.
Maybe it'll get recommended and P2 will be back.
Yeah.
I know.
In 2 years. You gotta wait 2 years.
Okay,
though.
2 years.
2 years. 2 years.
2 more years. Oh, please.
But yeah, I agree. Like, the acting was phenomenal in this, and I really like, even from the good, he was phenomenal. I think he did a really good job, like with his, I don't want to say ego, but like, being the best, and like he did a good job, like demonstrating that he's the best. Like just going up shooting random people for nothing, no reason. It's like I'm just trying to prove myself. I was like, all right.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
liked
like
all the gun tricks and stuff like that. Like when he was using his lever action, he was like
Oh, the reload,
cocking it
man.
with like spinning it around, and
Yeah.
the bad was also doing some crazy stuff, like the knife scene when he's knifing up the dude who saves the weird. Like that was such like a well shot and like well executed sequence of events. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You mean
I-
finger chopper?
Oh,
Nope,
yeah.
not Finger Chopper.
No, he's not Finger Chopper.
Finger
you know, but-
Chopper's the weird. That's the big reveal at the end.
yeah,
Exactly.
that was a big twist.
That's what I quite like though, is that like these characters are meant to be very serious, and then they would throw in just a perfect amount of comedy to go along with it. Like when it comes to that scene exactly that you were just mentioning, and then he goes to send a message to chop off the finger, and the knife doesn't work, and
Right.
it's just that dark humor that just kind of stops it from being that serious. But I think that the way that they did those kind of serious deaths and kills and were also very, very well done. They didn't seem overly like comical. They weren't like Wilhelm scream worthy. But like it kind of sets the scene like from the train stopping at the beginning with the spear that impales the driver to the point of where he still stands up. It kind of sets the scene immediately. We're going, okay, I realize what we're into here.
Or they need a spear to shove up your ass.
Yeah, definitely. But from my perspective, when I was kind of going through this again, I made notes in 3 categories. I made them in the good, the bad, and the weird. Okay, and I wanted to sort of get your opinions on it because I was trying to do those things of where I was trying to take notes like a critic, but I was also trying to relive the movie. So it would be a case of I go, oh, that's awesome, and completely forget to write something down. Still having to pause or like reverse. But a lot of the things I wanted to sort of say was, like I said, I love the dark humor. Like in the train scene where the girl doesn't stop screaming, so he just shoots her just to end that quickly. He's not doing it for a dark twisted desire of killing. He's just like, oh, you do my head in, please stop. But I felt like in every scene the transition between action shots and between parts of the movie was so well done. I think probably one of my most favorite ones is when they were having the very long shootout in the kind of rundown shack town type place. And as they kind of running across, there's like a beautiful transition that goes with one of the characters to completely change the camera angle. So a lot of that was so well done, and it kind of made the whole thing seem seamless. I felt like the music in like accompanied everything so well. Like they really cherry picked the right kind of tone for everything with it. And it goes down to my favorite line potentially out of the entire movie was when the weird finds out his wanted price. I don't know if you remember this part where he finds out he's only worth 301, which is essentially he goes, I'm only worth a piano.
A used one.
A used one. Yeah, exactly. So in terms of like the good, I could like my box got filled quite quickly. From the transitions, the cinematography, the music, the dark humor. I even like the continuity of that section where the good gets a shot and it hits him in the hat. And then towards the end of the film, that long desert scene, his hat still has the hole in it, which, it's small details like that normally you wouldn't notice, but me being me, I see that stuff. In terms of the bad, I did mention CGI, but then I realized it was done in 2008, so then I kind of let it off.
Yeah, I mean the only like CGI thing I noticed was the Falcon at the beginning. Like after that, it was like, it's fine. It was mostly practical effects, which is actually a part of the good. I'm surprised you didn't mention that. The practical effects in this was like crazy out of this world, like bombs exploding and horses flying and people being dragged and crazy.
It was really good.
This kind of comes to one of my things in a big capital letters across my page, which was "Holy shit, the mortar." And again, kind of like the scene where I'm assuming one of the guys on horseback with the Morning Star trying to attack the weird, and then his compatriots is trying to chase and catch up, and he gets blown to smithereens. And at that moment, they all go, "Forget it, we're out."
Retreat.
Yeah, probably the only other kind of thing that annoys me is the towards the end, the main kind of standoff between the three of them. These are all trained mercenaries, bounty hunters. They know how to shoot a gun, right?
Supposedly.
So you think?
Yeah, so why do they only shoot each other in the arm for like a good minute of the final showdown?
It's like a no-look shot, because you're trying to pay attention to the other guy, so you're not really seeing where your gun is aiming
Yeah.
per se.
So you're very kind.
Well,
But
especially when the good was like shooting the hat and like trying
No,
to
the
prevent
bad
him.
was shooting
yes,
that.
Oh yeah, the
yeah,
bad.
the
I'm
bad,
sorry.
yeah, exactly, yeah, exactly.
Shooting the
Exactly.
hat perfectly and to prevent him to pick it up. And then yeah, you're right. Every shot was in the arm. But you gotta make it intense. It's like who's gonna die first?
Exactly. You got to take the good with the bad, you know.
You gotta draw it out.
You,
But
you
yeah,
could
so
also say that the good knew that the weird wasn't a bad guy anymore, so maybe he intentionally aimed for the lesser, I don't know, vital parts of the weird's body.
possible,
I don't know.
possible.
It
But
was interesting. Like it seems like they both the bad and the good aimed at the weird first. Like they tried to take him down first, and then they shot at each other. That was an interesting choice.
Well, the
I
whole
think
movie, you thought that the bad was going to, 1v1 the good, but then the weird's in there, and you find out that he's like the true, like, overarching, like, oh, he was a real bad guy back in the day.
that's what I quite liked is that it felt like there was almost like a role reversal, and it showed how all three of them were connected. And like you said, if both of them were aiming for the weird, it kind of makes perfect sense, really. That being that the good wanted his 1v1 against the bad, and the bad had history of wanting to take him out. So it kind of makes sense why both went for him first of all, so that they could get that kind of, almost like that prize, that glory death versus 1v1, isn't it? So I thought it was quite an interesting take at the end there, where we realize that the weird is not as goofy as perhaps we've been led to believe for the entire film.
Yeah, he definitely changes, like, his mannerisms, and like everything changes as soon as they reveal that he's the actual finger chopper, and that's just another testament to how good the acting is. Like, he could change on the, his complete demeanor was completely changed right from there.
Exactly right. Yeah. I also liked how we almost like had an intro for each of these main characters. Obviously, from the weird's perspective, he was the one selling selling things on the train, and a lot of people don't realize that he actually walks past the good as that kind of scene starts. So it's quite fascinating how almost as an audience we're left with the main good guy last, which is quite unusual, which I quite liked.
Yeah, I like how he's walking through the train, and the one guy's like, "I'll take one." And he just shoves him down.
Yeah.
That was like, that made me laugh. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I going back train scene. I thought it was great, but those just that poor train got so much damage to it.
Oh, my
Like
heart
everything had to
yearns
be
for the
broken.
train.
Yeah, everything had to be broken.
Well, it was still running at the end of it all, so
That's true. It was still able to run.
I'm gonna say it. The conductor didn't deserve to die.
Yeah.
Like, he was just trying to help out the who he thought was injured on the side. He didn't deserve to get a spear thrown through him.
It was cool though, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a cool shot, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking
You
of
get for
shots,
helping.
yeah. Speaking of shots, P2 had mentioned the cinematography, but yeah, that's one of the things that stood out the most for me is just like how crazy and wild they were with like the camera movements and the shots, the angles, everything was just like so out there and crazy, and just like created this really cool action scenes, and just I just feel like it added a lot to the action though, like the way the camera itself was like a character in the movie
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah, I liked the one scene. They're chasing and they're in that town and they're just kind of like shooting across from each other. Like they're both hiding behind a door, and you can see like you got their perspective and you could like see the bullets fire. And then I thought that was really cool. made you feel like you were being shot at.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That was a really well. I mean, the whole movies was really well done, but there are like a few of those moments that kind of stand out where it's like, wow, that was like everything else is well done, but this is like extremely well done. Um, Another one that really stuck out to me was when the good shoots the motorcycle while the weird is driving past him, and he like whoever the stuntman is, props to him because he flips
Dang,
and he
yeah.
lands on his back, and it's like that had to hurt. It did not look like there was any padding there at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that the way that they shot the action scenes, the stunts, with that type of movie, I think it's very easy to get super carried away. And I think because it sets the scene of what the film is going to be like for the entire duration, it's not like a particular scene where it ramps up towards the end, but like you know what you're going to get. So I don't feel like that they could have even easily gone overboard with with the kind of things that they had already in there. But I think that it balanced it quite well. I think that it made it an enjoyable film where you didn't know who you wanted to root for. Everyone had like a valid stake. Everyone had like a valid claim towards it. And I think that's what kind of made it enjoyable from a viewer's point of view is how we saw certain events happen from each point of view of character. How that could have changed throughout the entire film. So there were many times where you're looking at the bad and you think, oh, I don't feel sorry for him at all. I think because of the goofiness of the weird, you naturally kind of gravitate towards him because he almost seems to not fit in this world that they're in. And I think that the good just kind of showed that his intention was always to do his job, so to speak.
Which was bounty hunting.
Yeah, exactly. So it was quite nice to sort of see it from different perspectives of where sometimes you're like, oh, I really want the bad to, get out of this. Or I really want the weird to show, like, do you know what I mean? And I think that it was quite interesting. And the comedy factor always took the edge off if it started to become a bit too serious, especially with the granny in those chats. So yeah, there's a lot of features that I thought were really, really well done.
I really thought at the end the bad was gonna like kill both of them. That's how I thought the movie was gonna go.
Yeah, I mean,
it's quite interesting. Yeah,
you kind of figure that the bad would die. I was not expecting the weird to live through his bullet wounds. Like you kind of expect the good to live, but I was like, dude, this guy got shot like 10 times.
Yeah, that's actually one of my talking points I wanted to bring up because there was a lot of scenes where like people were just getting shot and shot more, and then the one guy got stabbed in the back of his calf, and I'm just like, how is this guy still alive?
Well, it's just the overly bombastic nature of the movie. Going back to a point that you said about it. I forget exactly what you said, but I do feel like that big ending chase where everyone kind of comes together. It's like the Battle of the Five Armies, where like every single faction is there. Mm-hmm. I do feel like that whole segment with the mortars and stuff like that could have been maybe cut down a little bit because I did feel it start to drag on at that point. Mm-hmm. It started in a good place, and I was really, really into it, and then 10 minutes goes by and I'm like, holy shit, we're still doing this. And it's not like anything really new is happening, right? Yeah, people are getting blown up. Yeah. Horses are being thrown everywhere. Bodies are being thrown everywhere. I feel like they could have maybe trimmed that down a little bit to make it go a little bit smoother.
It does. Like, I kind of agree with you for the most part. Like, there are some parts where you're like, really? We're still chasing the guy in the little tuck car van thing. But it kind of feels as though they went to the director, look, we bought 10 trillion bullets. We've only used like 8, so should we just use the rest now? And he's like, yeah, chuck them all in there.
There were a lot of bullets fired, but yeah, I agree with you. Like that little ending, and like there was one point I was like, man, I feel like we're about to end this movie, and then I looked at the runtime. I was like, I still got 50 minutes to go. I was like, holy crap!
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a pacing issue here and there, just because of how quick the action scenes were, and then that final chase scene was just a little bit like I don't want to say it was slow because it was a lot of action, but it just really felt like it dragged on with how snappy and quick the other action scenes were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I thought the ending, no, draw scene was going to take longer than it did, so I'm glad it didn't. But do you
Well,
guys feel like that
yeah.
was a long?
Well,
Like,
I do feel like they should have extended that. Out of everything in the movie, you extend the part where the final showdown is taking place, right?
mhm.
But I do think that it went a little bit too fast. Once everyone kind of got ready to go, I was like, wow, we're not getting like, you kind of expect the spaghetti western type things where it's like zoom in on the eyes, they look both ways, everyone's looking both, and they kind of
Yeah.
do that. But I feel like maybe they could have taken that scene a little bit slower and ended that chase scene a little bit earlier to kind of make it have more impact at the end.
What was the point of at the end where the water thing just burst out after they all?
It's
Oil.
oil.
It's oil, right?
They don't
Yeah.
understand the value in it, so
Yeah, that was
that's
the
kind of like
treasure.
the ironic part that they're like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
Yeah, the
I was
treasure that
confused
they've all
about that.
been.
I was
Yeah.
like, why is this here? Why do we care about that?
Yeah. So the Japanese wanted to fuel their army, because it's
Yeah.
in the 30s, so World War II is coming up.
Mhm.
And then the bad, or the guy who the bad was working for, just kind of wanted it to get rich, and then um, one of the guys was trying to liberate Korea or something like that,
Yeah,
and they could use the money
Mhm.
for that. So it's got a little bit of like a political slant to it as
totally.
Mhm.
That kind of explains why there's like they keep mentioning Japanese, Chinese, Russian. So yeah, like you said, there's clearly some kind of political comment being made within it. I think, but like you said, I agree that in some ways with this showdown, I quite liked the pacing of it because I feel like throughout the entire film you got like a good, you know, maybe short and sharp, but backstory for each kind of character. They all had motive. They all had reason to be there. They all had like an end goal with everything. So it was quite fascinating because I couldn't remember the ending from all those years ago. So it was one of those things of where I wasn't sure who did come out alive. I just knew that I knew which one didn't, and I could
Yeah.
remember that, and it kind of. From looking at it from like a literary point of view, it's quite sad to think that the only one with an actual dream is the one that doesn't make it for sure. But it's quite interesting to think of what kind of transitions from a traditional kind of cowboy western treasure to like more of a modern day value of what makes a country rich as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was quite like a nice little flip on its head. Like, and I think that seems to be like the main focus for this film the entire time was that you can't sit still with like you don't get bored with the plot. You don't get bored with what is actually going to be happening or what's going on with it because it's almost like the film itself doesn't know.
And I'll be interested to like rewatch the movie, knowing now that the relationship between the bad and the weird, knowing that they have this history, and
Mm.
knowing that the weird is actually the finger chopper. So I'd be interested to see, with that fresh perspective, like rewatch the movie and see how they handle the whole
I
thing.
think it's quite interesting on that, Callus, because I don't think that the weird recognizes the bad for that.
Yeah.
In terms of like their interactions and stuff. I don't think he remembers that until he gets called out, essentially. But yeah, you could see that from the very beginning, the bad had like an extra motive with going after him, and I think it just so happened that the map was there because it looked like the bad was always going to double cross anyway, so he wasn't too upset about that.
Hmm. I was also surprised too because I expected the movie to just focus on these three main characters and like their relationship and how it evolves throughout the movie. But I was surprised that there was like so many other interested parties. Like we got the good who's by himself. We got the bad who's just kind of him and this friend for a little bit. No, the bad had like his gang, and then the
Mhm.
weird who was just him and his friend for a little bit. But then there was also the what's it called, the ghost market gangs. There was like a whole
Yeah.
bunch of people that was also like interested in the map, and on near the end we got the Japanese army that was also interested in the map, and like just all these different parties coming together and just getting involved in the story somehow. Like and also like a great testament to the movie is like with so many different characters and gangs and all these different things going on, like I was never confused as to who was who and who was on whose side. And they really like played it out really good.
Yeah, I actually one of my little criticisms was I did have trouble deciphering who was on whose side at times. Not specifically during the market scene when there's just like three different factions fighting against
Yeah.
each other in there.
Mhm.
I felt like the market gang and the bads gang didn't have enough to differentiate themselves, and I found myself getting confused as to, oh, why is the bad shooting this guy? Is he just doing it to say like fuck you? No, it is a bad guy, or it is a guy in the opposite gang. So there were times where I was struggling to kind of follow along. Obviously, it all makes more sense once you see them all at the end riding in their little groups. You go, oh, okay, that's their style, that's their style. But throughout the
Yeah.
action, it is hard to see. Like I feel like maybe they could have given each gang more of a distinct flavor, like have the market game be a little bit more colorful, like because they're kind of muted colors that they're wearing, but they are colorful, like clothing that they have on. And then the bads
Yeah,
gang,
they
they could have dressed
accessorize
them all
more.
up in like darker colors, but some of them were in tan. And it's like, okay, why are some of them in tan, some of them are darker? Like, come on, just maybe a little bit more straightforward fashion here is all I'm asking for.
I think you just watched too many Wes Anderson movies. That's what that sounds like.
And then there was also another gang, and I mean there's a bunch of gangs in there, but there was also a bunch of other like characters in there who it's kind of ambiguous what who they're working for until up until the part where they die. So that I don't
Yeah,
mind as much, but when the big action scenes are happening, I would have liked a little bit more a little bit more to differentiate the different the gangs.
Okay, that's fair.
yeah. There's also Mr. Independence who had a stake in it, but I guess he was working with the Japanese army.
I think that kind of
That's
just shows like the bandit nature, though, that everyone is for sale.
mm,
And that's maybe why if you know, I'm not sure if that is, but I kind of agree with Yemmy. And sometimes you're like, I don't know who's winning. I could just see that somebody's dying, somebody's shooting. I'm not, but I think that it kind of shows the nature of that life, so to speak, in terms of money dictates all, and you kind of see that when the weird gets kind of betrayed somewhat by his friend. But I do think that like it does from like an overall perspective kind of make it a little bit confusing, but at the same time I think maybe looking for it to be too in depth, because I think the main gang members, they make themselves known for one reason or another, like the guy who's somehow like a barbarian, I guess.
Yeah.
And they tend to all have those things. And because I'm watching like other things at the moment, especially on Amazon, I've started to fall into like that trick of where I'll wave my mouse over the screen and it kind of shows you who's in the scene. And what I noticed at that time was all of these gang members have actual like nicknames, and
Oh, really?
but they're never addressed, which I was really gutted, because like some of them are like called like Two Blades and all these kind of things, and you're like, whoa, that's actually really cool, but you just don't get to see it so much. And I think that's the point, isn't it? We're not learning about that gang in particular. We're not trying to empathize with them. We are trying to see that it is a get in, get the job done, get out type of role. But one thing I kind of just wanted to note is the bad for me kind of cements his fate towards the end of the film. When we see him essentially kicking one of his own team who is very close to death, and he's like, you're supposed to fight until the end. And I think when he was saying that, I was like, okay, cool. So he's coming here not to kind of, he's come to, tighten up all those loose ends. He's making sure that that's a job done, if you see what I mean, and by any means necessary. So it was quite interesting and quite enjoyable to sort of go back through all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you could also see that in like when he shoots his own guy in like a 1v1 duel, simply because the guy asked if he thinks he could beat the good in a duel himself,
Yeah.
He's like, I'll show you who's the best.
let me prove to you, a guy, random guy.
Yeah, to me, like he made himself out to be like really bad, like very evil. So I never really saw myself ever rooting for him because of that. Because I knew that
He's just got that little bad boy bone in his body.
That's true.
I wish I did.
Oh, I thought you had more to say, Callus. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I did, honestly.
One thing that I would like to bring up, the costume design is something that we haven't
Oh
talked
my
about.
days!
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It is a good combination of like things you would expect to see kind of in the Western almost, like some cowboy hats here and there, rugged clothing. But there's also a touch of that modern in there as well, which really emphasizes the change of like, from the 30s to the 20s to the 30s where, and also like this part of the world, is a little bit behind other, like, America's not wearing cowboy hats and stuff anymore at this time, but the Asian companies, countries, not companies, countries definitely would be wearing older stuff. They'd be using older weaponry. That's why you don't see, submachine guns and machine guns in here. Only the Japanese army really has the heavy stuff. So I like that. It's kind of a pseudo period piece as well.
Yeah. And the costume design is fantastic, and I think that even like I'm looking at the front cover for the film now, and it's showing the standoff between the three. Just even in the kind of aesthetic, like you said, the bad is dressed like a your run of the mill, very cliched bad boy look. You've got the very classic cowboy for the bounty hunter, and then the weird has got just seems whatever he could find in the cupboard.
That underwater suit. The underwater helmet.
Yeah, exactly right.
And then I wanted to mention this, one of my favorite sequences, just like camera's perspective and stuff like that. When Granny and the Weird are kind of talking, and all of a sudden the bullets start flying. I like that one scene. How they framed it, where the Weird like uses the table. He's crawling under the table. He's using it as like a turtle shell almost,
Yeah.
And then he slams it against the window. That the camera angle was perfect, and it did it's once again, so like a little bit of a goofiness after kind of a more serious part of the movie.
I completely agree. I think the camera angles were they felt unique. And they're not, but it's just that it's so regularly you don't see like a top down shot, or you don't see like a fluid kind of and like Callus mentioned earlier, with feeling as though you're one of the characters. In that scene where they're running through, and this is where the good and the weird have kind of half teamed up, for want of a better phrase. And the camera's kind of running behind them as they're both going through the street. And it's done as if the cameraman is quite literally running behind them. So it's quite nice to sort of, like you said, feel as if you are part of that scene. And it's very quick to sort of get into that of where you think, oh my God, this is very, very intense. And then it's broken up. I think that the drops of humor and comedy were done by all characters very, very well, delivered very well. One of my favorite scenes is the Weird going, should I run straight across, or should I like zigzag to try and like confuse him? And he's like
funny.
just staring at him, and it's like, I'll decide. And he's like, cha 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 cha.
And he's being so dumb.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that they kind of just delivered it really, really well, especially when he's been captured and he escapes, and he thinks that he's like the mastermind criminal, managed to escape, and all three of them are just having a fire. And they're like, "Oh, you're escaping, are you?" And he's like, "No, not at all. I just came to tell you that the thing came out." So I think that they delivered that very, very. And like Yemmy said, I think that when you see like that almost flip in character traits, works so well with the film. Of where you do see the good, the bad, and the weird side of each character also.
That is true.
So here's the question. Which character is each of us in the film?
Oh.
Okay.
Well, we already said P2 was all three of them. So.
Yeah, so
I
I'm
didn't
all
said
three.
in the intro for my name, I was the Weird.
No, you were the weird ferret, not the weird. I said that wrong. It's okay.
The Yemmy, the weird. I mean, the ferret.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, I would probably say that Yemmy is the good. He would always want to do things by the book. He wants to make sure that, and the reason why I choose this is because as arguably the most seasoned of seasoned gamers, if there is ever a title to be taken or a bounty to be collected, you can be sure that Yemmy will be hunting that down. So that's why I would say that he would be the good. I would say that Greedy is the weird, because it's bizarre how you can be that good looking and that strong at the same time.
Oh,
Not
okay.
And Callus is the bad, because he's the bad boy rocking the blue hair. You know,
Wow.
he knows how to get the job done, and he's got the quiff. You've got to get the quiff going. So that's why I would say between you three for sure.
All right. I'll take it. I was
I'll
interested
take
to
it,
see.
yeah.
All Callus has to do for his profile picture is frown, and there you go. It's perfect. He's got
Done.
the
That's how easy it is.
yeah. Like, there you
Callus
go.
cosplays the bad Wen.
Yeah, you almost had the same hairstyle.
Almost, especially with
Almost,
the new hair, where like some of the hair is like covering part of my face now. So
Right.
Yeah.
See?
yeah.
Half emo, half mullet. It's like perfect combo.
Let's see. P2 would be the big barbarian guy. No.
Yeah.
Just throwing people through windows.
Yeah, maybe you're like the underling to the guy with the freaking star, or the guy who gets killed by the mortar shot. Who's the guy who's like under him?
Yeah, he's. I can't remember his name,
He's
but
kind of suave, you know. He's kind of
bizarrely
suave.
enough, like his
Suave.
name seems to get mentioned the most, like out of quite literally every character. Okay, yeah, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, a little suave there. And then we'll just say Tay is two blades or whatever that random grunt's name is.
Sure.
No,
Yeah.
Tay would be the barbarian dude for sure.
No. Tay can be the grandma.
Yeah,
Granny.
Tay's granny. He's asleep right now.
There you go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
there you go.
Absolutely perfect. You've done it.
Good work, everyone.
Completed it.
Okay. Well, was there anything else anyone wanted to mention about the good, the bad, the weird?
I know that P2 had mentioned how much he loved the music, which I did too. I really like the soundtrack. I felt like it was very unique and it made itself stand out. But there were like certain tracks that kind of just like popped in the middle of certain scenes that I would just kind of thought it was a weird choice. So I didn't agree 100% with the like the music choices, but for the most part, I did enjoy it.
Yeah,
Be
the
honest
music
with-
definitely goes under the weird aspect of the movie.
I
So it's
really
kinda
didn't
like
notice
techno
the
at
music,
times.
though.
Was that
Well-
good? You didn't notice?
I really didn't. I mean, I know there was a couple of times where I heard it. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, other than that, I was just like, whatever.
Well, that's crazy to me because it was very much in the forefront.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting sound. Like a couple of tracks, like Callus mentioned, were very interesting. In terms of just like kind of being a little bit electronic in there, a little bit like
Mhm.
I don't know, it's just kind of weird. Like that's the thing. The good, the bad. This is under the weird. The music for me is under the weird.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely like a loud soundtrack too. It was definitely always made itself known. So, anything else anyone wanted to mention?
Well, Callus, you said last episode that you wanted to kind of compare it to the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's right.
Were there any comparisons to be made between the two movies?
There are some, not many, but some. I think there's like a few similarities. It's been like probably more than 10 years since I've seen it, but some of the things that I do remember is I think like all three of them were like after the same thing, and the good and the ugly did also team up for a little bit.
I think it was
also-
definitely inspired by that movie.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely like the closest thing I could compare it to is like the final showdown where all three of them are standing in like triangular shape, and that final showdown, it's very memorable in the good, the bad, and the ugly. But yeah, it's definitely turned out way different than what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's very much a different movie.
Well, yeah, going. I mean, back when P2 originally recommended this one, I was like, "Oh, what is this? Some sort of like knockoff parody of the good, the bad, and the ugly?" You know. And not until more recently, when I actually read the synopsis, was like, "Oh, this is like a completely different thing. Like this, it's not even close to, Clint Eastwood in the West. You know. Well, technically, they shot that movie in Italy, if I'm not mistaken.
Did they? I don't know.
It's a spaghetti western. You know why they call it spaghetti western?
Ah,
Oh, that's true.
It's not a joke. It's literally true.
No. He's right. Yummy is correct. Yes.
It just sounded like the most dad joke of all time.
No, it's true. Spaghetti westerns are by Italy. They're shot in Italy. It's 100% true. Look it up right now.
Okay, all right.
It's gonna be Yemmy's joke of the day for Cow's Discord tomorrow.
Yes.
It's not a joke though. It's true.
And that's funny.
Oh my
because-
god, you're so. It sounds like such made up, absolute bullshit.
But it's true.
It is totally true.
Thank
Dang.
you. I will take a written apology
Okay.
from everyone.
I was on your side.
didn't say
was on your
anything.
side.
From P2.
There you go.
There we go.
But it's funny you mentioned that because I was just reading like some of the trivia and like the director wanted to call this a kimchi western after like a Korean food that's like very spicy
I
and
mean,
vibrant.
kimchi.
Kimchi.
Oh, like a kimchi western. Okay, that kind of makes sense. I get you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like kimchi. I'll call it that.
Yeah, we'll call this the kimchi western.
The kimchi, the rice, the I can't think of another food. Ah,
The
shit.
joke.
The pho.
Yeah, the
The-
pho.
the-
There you go.
Okay, yeah.
I take it back, yeah, man. I do apologize. It did sound like the most dad joke delivery of all time.
I accept your apology. Even though you didn't have to apologize, you did not. I accepted it.
Now kiss.
Mwah.
Aw.
Meh.
Oh wow.
All right.
All right. Anything else for the movie?
Not for my part.
No, not for me.
I think I'm good. Yeah.
P2, did you want to recommend your next movie for the vote here and now?
I will, actually.
Ooh, okay, let me get my
Oh.
notepad up.
Well, we've already mentioned it, Yemi, and I'm surprised you haven't done it yet. Because I'd love to get your insight on it. I will recommend Parasite.
Nice.
Ooh.
Okay. I'm adding that to the list right now.
Oh.
P2 Parasite.
Did Tay have anything to say, or does he just give his final opinion?
He just gave his final opinion, but
Oh, okay.
we covered all the points that he made in his
Okay,
little
okay.
paragraph.
Cool.
All right. Well, the guest always starts with their final thoughts and rating out of 5. So P2, take it away.
Okay, the good, the bad, the weird. A perfect film to just forget about what's going on. Enjoyable, crazy, bonkers, all of that good stuff. Fantastic music, fantastic action shots, and just fantastic humor, especially if you like it a little bit dark and a little bit twisted. I would highly recommend this film. That is why I'm giving it. Now, there are some bad parts, so that's why I'm giving it a rating of 4.5 out of 5.
Mm.
All right. Yeah, for me, it was a very fun and entertaining movie. I feel like some things maybe could have been cut down a little bit, especially that end. I think the end is really the only thing that needed to be cut down, and then extend the duel between the three of them. I think that's the only thing that like story like just editing wise I would change up. But yeah, it was a very bombastic movie, very fun. Really loved like all the action scenes. It also had a pretty nice story in there as well when there was time for story sections. And yeah, I just wish there was a little bit more to differentiate the different gangs. Maybe make them a little bit more uniform. And then I already mentioned like the ending chase scene was just like it felt like it was going on forever, and I was kind of like done with it about 5 minutes in, and they kept going for another like 5 minutes or so after that. But once again, I really it's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's really good. The practical effects are phenomenal, almost on the same level as like Mad Max, honestly, and that's pretty good. So in the end, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5.
Ooh. Yeah, I agree. This movie is really fun. It's a fun watch. The story is there. As we talked, like right off the bat, you know what's going on, what's happening, and what this movie, what you're in for. So that's a really good job. Good directing overall. The acting was phenomenal in this. I think each of the three, the good, the bad, and the weird, played their roles perfectly. I think they did a wonderful job. Yeah, some of the gangs got a little confusing, but I think that's just because just of the chaos of the movie. The where was I going with this? The camera work was phenomenal. Like I said, that scene where they're just kind of shooting at each other across in the town made you really like into the scene and made you felt like you were there. So they did a great job with that. The run did seem to, like Yemi said, the chase scene did seem like to carry on, and I would have liked the ending to be extended a little bit. Make that 10 minutes long instead of the chase scene. But overall, it was a good movie. Definitely a must watch. If you haven't seen it, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5.
And
Cool.
like I mentioned, Tay left his thoughts here for me to read, and usually he goes after Greedy. So he said overall that he liked it and that it was a fun movie. He liked that the movie just jumped right into it, into the action, and did a good job of showing off the three main characters. The acting was really great. He says the cinematography was a little wonky at times, but for the most part was fine. And some of the scenes were a bit slower, but for the most part, he thinks that they helped punctuate the action scenes and help build up the characters. Overall, it was a little bit predictable, but he still had a good time watching it, so he gives it a 4 out of 5.
All right. So yeah, I thought it was a very enjoyable movie, very action-packed, over-the-top scenes, which I usually like over-the-top movies. And this did not disappoint, as I had said. The camera work was great, the action was amazing, the acting was really good, and yeah, there's a few things that were kind of weird, like the music. And I agree for the most part, like that the story was sort of predictable, except for that twist at the end where we find out that the weird is actually the finger chopper. So that was a complete surprise. But overall, I would have to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
All right, P2 will remain our friends because we rated it highly.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that you enjoyed it. It's like you said, when you first hear of it, it's one of those films where you think, ugh, it's going to be one of those type of movies. But I'm glad that you really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that it's actually held, its value after all these years as well.
Yeah, it's not like the scary movies. It's definitely its own thing.
No.
All right, well, it's time for me to once again rec a movie for the podcast, and people who have been on the Discord for the past like month and a half know that I've been diving deep into ship sinkings and big
Mm.
boats and ships,
Uh-oh.
especially during the heyday of steam engineering, which has been really interesting. And one of the main targets of these videos is, of course, the Titanic. And I've always been like, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the Titanic, but I've always been interested in the story of the ship and everything like that. Obviously, I've made lots of jokes about it in the past, especially with between me and P2, where I Photoshop his face onto various crew members. So I'm very interested to watch this movie again with all the knowledge that I have of the sinking of the Titanic, which, of course, the movie is called Titanic, and it's from 1997. There are a fair amount of Titanic movies, so make sure you're watching the James Cameron one from 1997. The synopsis
Wow.
is the 101-year-old Rose DeWitt tells the story of her life aboard the Titanic. 84 years later, a young Rose boards the ship with her mother and fiance. Meanwhile, Jack Dawson and Fabrizio Di Rossi wins third-class tickets aboard the ship. Rose tells the whole story from the Titanic's departure through its death on its final and last voyage on April 15th, 1912. And of course, this stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Billy Zane, Gloria Stewart, Frances Fisher, Kathy Bates, Victor Garber, Bill Paxton, and many, many more. And it's also the 25th anniversary of the film this year.
Wow, I can see why you were saying that this is like the opposite of a Wes Anderson film.
Yes, very much the opposite of a Wes Anderson movie. But yeah, I've just I've been thinking about this movie a lot since I started getting back into these kind of like ship sinking is pretty much I mean, I'm like terrified of ships, but I find the sinking and the facts behind all the stories behind it very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't watched this movie since I was like 12 years old. We had it on 2 VHS tapes, so it'll be interesting to see it all in one go.
I,
Yeah,
I I remember seeing this in theaters. Like I was actually in theater when it was
You can see it
brand
in
new.
theaters right now.
yeah, it's still in theaters.
That's true. Yeah, it
Yeah,
went
they
back to
re-released
theater.
it in 3D for the 25th anniversary.
3D, really? Oh,
Yeah.
Damn.
I am not watching it in 3D.
I was
Wow, the
thinking
ship is coming out of the screen.
maybe to stop, and go into the theater and watch it because, like, I mean, that would be just like watching it back in 1997 on the big screen. I mean, sure, you're wearing the 3D glasses, but how much does it really do? I think that it'd be really interesting to have like the whole big surround sound and the big screen. I'm very tempted to watch it in theaters. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my gosh, you can see Rosa's nude scene in 3D.
right.
That's why Yemmy wants to go see it.
titty will
We
poke out.
found him out.
The titty pokes out. Looks like it's in 3D.
Everyone's gonna be reaching for the screen.
Wow.
Fun fact before I forget, James Cameron actually drew the nude Rose pictures. There you go. Fun. That's my first
Did he
fun
really?
fact. Yes.
Wow.
And I'm gonna have plenty more fun facts where that's from. Like I said,
Yay.
I've been all over this story for a very long time, and as P2 knows, I've
Definitely.
always been very interested in the Titanic specifically. I know a lot of people are. I'm not like a snowflake, like a whatever. But I just I just wanted to watch it. It was
Can
this.
we get P2 to draw Yemmy naked for this occasion?
Tastefully,
If
just
you
like
want me to,
Markiplier.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, tasteful. But yeah, it was actually between Titanic or the Poseidon Adventure, which was like marked as like the first disaster movie, kind of like big blockbuster disaster movie. But I decided to go with this because it's more of a classic and it's the 25th anniversary. So there you go. And if you, the listener, want to join in on the conversation or not be spoiled for the Titanic, I wonder what happens. Make sure you watch that before the next episode airs in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we'll reconvene and talk about Titanic. Once again, big thank you to Player2 for coming on the show today. Thank you so much, Player2.
No, thank you guys. I've had an absolute blast. Been a long time coming to be on Film Freaks with a Z. So I do appreciate it. And I hope I'm just glad that I was part of it. So thank you guys.
We much appreciate you, P2. You were a blast to have on. If you want to check out Player2, twitch.tv/Player2P2. If you want to check him out there. Also, he does some commissions on Etsy, right?
On Tasteful Yemmy Nudes.
Yes.
Yes.
Go over to his Etsy and be like, "Hey, I want you to draw a nude ferret," and he'll bring it right up.
Pilot already has it done.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
His art chest.
It's already
Dang.
hanging on his wall.
I've been exposed.
All right. Anyone else have anything they want to mention before we end the show?
Don't forget to clean your ass.
I guess that's it. Yeah.
Hey kids, don't forget to clean your ass.
It's always interesting to see how our guests will react to that final line. All right. Well, I am the Yemmy, the ferret, and I've been here with
Greedy, or I was the Weird Waffles? Yeah, the Weird Waffle. I forgot what I said.
Song Wu Callis.
And all three of them.
Oh,
and this has been Film Freaks with a Z. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.